Hello and welcome. In this video, let's understand the concept of refresh token when we are working with JWT tokens. If you have watched the previous videos of this playlist, in those videos, we have implemented JWT based authentication and authorization. Let's open up Visual Studio and see what we have done earlier. Earlier, we have created two projects. One was app.identity. This was responsible to create JWT token. And using that JWT token, we were implementing authorization in our this app.main application. Right. And if you remember, when generating the token, what we have specified the expiry time. If you notice here, I have mentioned the expiry time. That was nothing but 1 hour. So it means once the token is generated, after 1 hour, this token will become invalid and we want to be able to use this particular token. So let's discuss a scenario when this token will get expired. Once this token is expired, user have to again provide username and password and generate a new token. This is not the ideal behavior that we want in our application. What we want is, we want something using that we can refresh our token, meaning we can get a new token without providing the username and password. For that, we can use refresh token. So let's see how refresh token will work with JWT tokens. Here is a diagram that is explaining how refresh token will work. So let's see. The first step is user authorization request, meaning user will provide the username and the password. Using this username and password, we will provide access token as well as we will also provide a refresh token, right? So we will send two tokens to the user. Okay. So using the access token, user will go to the source server and get the data, whatever they want, right? So we have this identity server. We can call it authorization server also, because this is responsible to generate JWT token and a refresh token. Once we have this access token, we can go to the source server and get the data that we have seen already, right? And server will respond with the resource if the token is valid. Let's see, after some time, user is again asking for the resource and they are providing the same access token. And this time the token is expired. What will happen? We will send an error message to the user saying this is not a valid token. Please use a valid token, right? At this point, the client will realize my token is expired. What they will do? They will send a refresh token to the user, and using that refresh token, the server will again generate an access token and a refresh token for us. So this is the way to refresh our access token using a refresh token. Let's see how this will be implemented in our C# application. So let's go back to Visual Studio and implement this scenario. Okay, first of all, here we are generating our access token and we are returning that access token as a string here. But what we want to do now, we want to return a refresh token also. So let's implement that change in this method. First of all, let's create a class called token model that will have the property of access token and refresh token. So let's add a folder with the name models. And let's add a class in this with the name token model. We'll have three properties. First will be the access token. Similarly, I will have refresh token, and I will also have a date time field that will actually tell when this refresh token will expire. So we will have expiry date on access token and we will have an expiry date on our refresh token also. Generally, expiry date of access token will be very short. Normally, it can be 1 day, 2 day, or maybe less than that. But refresh token can have a longer expiry date. It can be valid till 7 days, 10 days, depending on your requirement. So I have added this property of date time type, and this will basically tell when this refresh token will get expired. Now let's come back to our JWT authentication manager class, and here let's change the return type from string to a token model. So now I have updated my class here with return type as token model, and in interface also I have the return type as token model. Now let's see how we can generate a refresh token. To generate a refresh token, let's create a private method. Okay, so this is the logic. First, we are creating a new bytes array of size 64. Then we are creating a random number generator using the dot create method. And once we have this random number generator, we are getting bytes and storing it in the random number. Once we have the bytes in this random number, we are converting those bytes to a base 64 string. And basically, this will be our refresh token. We need to call this method in this method, which is authenticate. And let's change this also. So we'll store this in a variable first. Now we have our access token and refresh token. Now we can prepare an object of token model class and return it from here. Okay, so this is my token model. I am passing the access token, refresh token, and I'm saying this token will get expired after 7 days. The expiry date of our access token is 1 hour and expiry date of our refresh token is 7 days. Now we have our access token, but we also need to do one more step. We need to save this token somewhere so that when the user will give us the refresh token, we need to find out to which user this refresh token belongs to, right? And once we have identified the user, we need to generate a new access token for that user and send it back to the client. To save this access token, I will basically use the in-memory. And guys, this is not the best way to store your token data. Basically, we will want to store this in a database, or we want to store it somewhere else very safely and securely. But for this demo purpose, I will just store it in a static variable. For that, let's first create a class that will be saving the data related to the refresh token. I will be calling my class as user login data. Right. So this class will have three properties. One is username, meaning the username who is trying to log in or who is trying to generate the access token. Second one is the refresh token. So the refresh token that will be generated for this user will be stored here. And the third property is valid up to UTC. In this property, we will store the time when this refresh token will expire. Once that is done, let's come back to our JWT authentication manager, and here let's add a method that will be responsible to save this token. First, let's create a static list. Okay, so this is my list, and this list is of type user login data. Now we can go ahead and add our method. So this is my token, save token, and this will add the login data in the static list that we have created. Okay, so this is taking username and the refresh token, and it is also storing the valid up to UTC to 7 days, right? So this will basically store the user login data in this list. Once this is created, what we need to do, we need to save the token before returning it from here. Here we have created our token model. So after token model is created, or let's do one thing, let's save this token before creating a token model object, right? Once we have created the refresh token, at that point only we will save this token. So let's call the save token method here and pass down the username and the refresh token. So this will take care of saving the refresh token. Once that is done, we need to create a method that will basically refresh. Once that is done, we need to create a method that will basically refresh our access token. So let's create it. I will be calling my method as refresh, and that will also return a token model. So basically this will take two things. One is the access token. Second thing is the refresh token. Now we will receive the access token, and what we need to do, we need to find the user to which this access token is belonging, right? So for that, we need to use JWT security token handler object. So let's create an object of that class. Once that is there, we need to call the read JWT token method on this. Like this, I will be calling read JWT token, and I will be passing access token here, and I will get a token. And this token is readable because when I say token dot here, I'll get all the properties which are available on that access token, right? So what I want to do, I want to find out to which user this access token is belonging. For that, I can use my claims object, which is present on my token, and I can find out the claim of type unique name. Because if you notice, when we were creating this token, we have set up a claim here, claim type name, and this is a unique identifier. This is nothing but a unique name that is added to our token. So using that, we can fetch our username back, right? So let's do that. So I'm using the claims property of my token, and from that I'm trying to find the first claim that is having type as the unique name, and I'm getting the value of that claim, and I'm storing it in my username variable. And here, if my username is null, I will simply return null from here, because no need to proceed further, because we are not able to identify to which user this token is belonging. So there is no point of refreshing this token. But if we have found a valid username here, then what we need to do, we need to find the user login data for this user. For that, we will be using our this particular list, that is user logins. So let's see what is happening here. I am using this user logins list. If you remember, we have called save token and stored the user login data in this list. So from this list, we are trying to find an item where the username is equal to the username which we have found in access token, and we are checking if the refresh token that was stored on that item is equal to the refresh token that the user is sending. So basically we want to make sure the refresh token is valid, okay, and it is belonging to the correct user. Once that is done, we need to make sure refresh token is not expired, right? Because we have set up the validity also for our refresh token, that is nothing but the 7 days, and after 7 days the refresh token will get expired. So let's validate the expiry time also. Okay, so here I'm checking that. I'm checking if we are not able to find any login data from the user's logins list. And if we have found, then I'm checking if the time is expired, meaning if the current time is greater than token expiry time, it means the token is expired. If any of this condition is true, I will be returning null from here. It means the token is either invalid or the token is either expired. But if we have found a valid login data and we have a refresh token that is not expired, in that case, we need to refresh the access token. For that, we can again call our authenticate method and generate a token. I will simply call my authenticate method. Okay, so I am calling my authenticate method. I am passing the username and I'm also passing the password here. And for password, I'm using my users list. Right, once that is done, we can simply return the token model from here. So let's provide an endpoint to the user so that they can invoke that and they can refresh their access token. So let's go to controller class. Okay, in this identity controller, let's create one more method. And basically this will receive a refresh token request. So let's create a class of refresh token request. I will be adding it in my models folder. Will have only two properties, that is access token and refresh token. Once that is done, come back to our controller class, and I will be calling my refresh method from my service class. I'm getting an error here because what we have done, right, we have added the method directly in our authenticate manager class. So we have added this method here, but we have not specified this method in our interface. So let's do that. You can press control dot here and you can say pull refresh up, and you can say pull refresh up to IJWT authenticate manager. I'll click on this and it will add this signature in my interface. You see, this is added here. Now again, come back to the controller class, and I think we have misspelled the refresh method here. So let's update the spelling here. So to refresh, and let's change it in our manager class also. Now if you go to our controller, you can see we have this request here. So I'll be getting it from request dot this, right? And here, if I don't get a valid token, meaning if you get token as null, it means the user is not authorized or the refresh token that they're providing is invalid, right? So I will be returning unauthorized from here. And if it is not the case, if we have got the token, I will return that token back to the user. With this, I think we are done and we can start testing this application. So let's run this application and test it out. So let me run both my application. So for that, I will right click on this and I will select configure startup projects. And I will say multiple startup projects and I will say start here. I will apply this. I will say yes and click on OK. Now when I will run this, it will start my both project, that is app.identity and app.main. Okay, my application is running, and if you notice here, the app.main is running at 7052 and app.identity is running at 7163. Now let's open up the postman. Okay, so I opened up my postman and I'm hitting this URL 7163, and if you notice here at 7163, our identity server is running and I'm trying to generate a token here. I am passing the username and password. I am trying to generate a token here by passing a valid username and password. Let's try with the invalid user one. So let's say I am not passing a correct password here and sending the request. You can see in the body I'm getting 401 unauthorized, but if I pass a valid password and send this request, this time I'm getting two things. Basically, the three things I'm getting. First one is the access token. Using this token, we can access our API, that is app.main application. I'm getting one refresh token and I'm also getting one valid up to UTC. This is telling when this token will expire. So we have our access token, we have our refresh token. First, let's see if we are able to access our API with this access token or not. So let's open up a new tab. I'll copy this URL and the port number that I should be specifying here is 7052. 7052. Let's send this request. I'm getting 401 unauthorized because I'm not passing a token here. So let's go to headers and pass down authorization header. I'm able to get the data. Now let's see how we can refresh our token. Or let's do one thing. Let's go here and say duplicate tab. Here, instead of going to the authenticate endpoint, I will be going to refresh endpoint. And if I send my refresh token here, I need to specify the access token and I need to specify my refresh token, right? So let's copy the access token from here and let's copy the refresh token from here. Paste it here. I'll send this request and you can see I have again received a valid access token. And if I use this access token here, I copy this and go here and paste this particular token and send the request. I'm again getting the data. So guys, this is basically how you can use a refresh token in your application. If you don't want to send username and password again and again, what you can do, you can use refresh token, and at the back end, client can send a request to refresh the token and they can get a new access token and keep using the application. So that's it for this video, guys. In this video, we have understood what is the concept of refresh token and how it can be implemented in .NET based web API.